Namaste. Hello and welcome. I'm Samta Aunty, the founder and CEO of Virtual Preschool, where children have fun learning Hindi through English. Today we are going to talk about the simple question, where do you live in Hindi? We're going to learn how to ask the question, where do you live? We'll learn how to answer the question and correct pronunciation. So by the end of this lesson, you'll be able to go to anyone who speaks Hindi and ask them, where do you live? And be able to answer that question if somebody asks you. So, to ask the question, where do you live? In Hindi, we say, Aap kahan rehte hain? Now, that's if you're asking a boy or a man. If you're asking a girl or a woman, then you'd say, Aap kahan rehti hain? Do you hear the difference? Aap kahan rehte hain versus aap kahan rehti hain. So, the difference is in that word, rehte and rehti. For men or boys, we say rehte. For girls or women, we say rehti. Now, remember, it doesn't matter whether you, the person asking, is a boy or a girl. It matters who you are asking. So I'm a woman, and if I ask a man, where do you live? I would say, aap kahan rehte hain? But if I was asking another woman, I would ask her, aap kahan rehti hain? So remember, it doesn't matter whether you are a boy or a girl. It matters who you are asking. Okay? Now, let's answer the question. We've already learned how to say, where do you live? Aap kahan rehte hain for men and boys, or aap kahan rehti hain for women and girls. Let's do it again. Repeat after me. Aap kahan rehte hain. One more time. आप कहाँ रहते हैं? That's for asking the question, where do you live, for men and boys. For girls, आप कहाँ रहती हैं? आप कहाँ रहती हैं? One more time. आप कहाँ रहती हैं? Now, let's talk about answering the question. Just like with the question asking, we have two ways to answer. We have one for boys and one for girls. Let's say you live in Los Angeles. Then boys would say, मैं Los Angeles में रहता हूँ. मैं Los Angeles में रहता हूँ. And girls would say, मैं Los Angeles में रहती हूँ. मैं Los Angeles में रहती हूँ. So do you hear that difference again? The रहते and रहती. Okay? Now, here's the thing. This is the cool part. Do you see the blank line on your screen? That's where you fill in the blank with wherever you actually live. Okay? So no matter where you live in the world, you just put that place in the blank line. So let's say you lived in Sydney. मैं सिडनी में रहती हूँ. Or let's say it was a guy that lived in London. मैं लंदन में रहता हूँ. Or if it was a girl living in New Delhi. मैं दिल्ली में रहती हूँ. So do you get what I mean by just filling in the blank with wherever you live? And that's it. And this applies to anywhere, whichever state, city, or country you live in. It doesn't matter. मैं कैलिफोर्निया में रहती हूँ. मैं न्यूयॉर्क में रहती हूँ. मैं जॉर्जिया में रहता हूँ. मैं एरिज़ोना में रहता हूँ. Okay, do you get it? So that is something that you can apply to no matter where you live. Now, let's look at another way to answer the question. Let's say you're in India. Would people in India know the name of the city or town that you live in? Maybe, but not likely, right? Unless you live in a big city, like you actually live in San Francisco or in Los Angeles or in New York or Houston or some other big city. But if you live in a smaller suburb of these big cities like Anaheim Hills or Pleasanton or Murrieta or some other non-major city, people in India probably wouldn't know of that place. So in that case, instead of saying I live in Anaheim Hills, or I live in Pleasanton, or I live in Dublin, I live in Murrieta, you would say the next closest big city. So like for instance, if you lived in Anaheim Hills, you might say instead, I live near Los Angeles. Or if you lived in Pleasanton or Dublin, you might say, I live near San Francisco. Or if you lived in Murrieta, you might say, I live near Atlanta. Okay? So how do we say near? We say que pas. Que pas. So let's take a look at how to answer the question to say, I live near a place. So let's say I wanted to say, I live near Disneyland. And let's pretend I'm a boy. मैं डिज्नीलैंड के पास रहता हूँ. मैं डिज्नीलैंड के पास रहता हूँ. I live near Disneyland. Now, if a girl was saying it, she would say मैं डिज्नीलैंड के पास रहती हूँ. So this is no different than everything we've learned so far. We're just introducing que pas to describe that we live near something. But notice how we still have the blank line that we fill in the blank with wherever we live near. And the रहता for boys and रहती for girls, that did not change. The only thing that changed is we added some new vocabulary, que pas, which means near. Let's look at some other examples. If you wanted to say, I live near Los Angeles. मैं Los Angeles के पास रहता हूँ. That's what a boy would say if he was answering. A girl would say, मैं Los Angeles के पास रहती हूँ. Or if somebody lived near San Francisco, मैं San Francisco के पास रहता हूँ. For a boy, मैं San Francisco के पास रहती हूँ. For a girl. मैं Grand Canyon के पास रहता हूँ. For a boy, मैं Grand Canyon के पास रहती हूँ. For a girl. So now, in today's lesson, in a few minutes, you have learned how to ask, where do you live? How to answer the question. And also, you have learned how to say, I live near something. Okay, so आप कहाँ रहते हो for boys. आप कहाँ रहती हैं for girls. मैं Los Angeles में रहता हूँ for boys. मैं Los Angeles में रहती हूँ for girls. And if you want to say you live near a place, मैं Los Angeles के पास रहता हूँ for boys. मैं Los Angeles के पास रहती हूँ for girls. So, धन्यवाद. Thank you so much for listening. Keep practicing, and I'll see you in class.